Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. My name's Tom Luongo. It is Monday, March 18th, I think. 18th. Yeah, 18th. 18th. Sounds good. 2019. We got a lot to talk about. But before we do so, we're going to talk about Brexit tonight because lots to talk about with Brexit. All sorts of stuff. I almost did a video this afternoon about it, but I'm like, I should wait and listen and absorb a little bit more before I decide to like jump in and give in my 2 cents. And then of course there's the live stream that happens at 8 o'clock every Monday night at 8 o'clock, as well as Friday nights at 8:30. We do this every week, as it was, and we've been doing it for God knows not over 2 years now. So you can also follow my work over at goldgoatsandguns.com or tomluongo.me, and the odd time when I tweet over at TFL1728. You can also follow me at once a week over at moneyandmarkets.com, as well as about every 6 days or so over at Strategic Culture Foundation. And then everything else just gets retweeted all around the alternative and crank portion of the web. So how is everyone this evening? I hope you're enjoying yourselves, and I hope you're enjoying the Brexit drama, because, you know, what would a week be without more Brexit drama? Because, you know, the Brits, what can I tell you? All right, let's get right to it. So this afternoon, during a session of Parliament, Speaker John Bercow, who has never been what you would call a leaver, came out today and told the Prime Minister, told the government without any further prompting, without any particular prompting, in advance of them advancing a motion to bring Theresa May's disgustingly bad treaty with the European Union, otherwise known as the deal. But it's not a deal, it's a treaty, never forget that. And it's a legally binding one that they can't get out of. That the government would not be able to bring that to the floor of Parliament without substantial change to the last motion, which has already been voted down. Now, one would think that that's just logical. Yeah, I mean, to me, I've always thought, I don't know much about British parliamentary history. I don't know shit about British parliamentary history. Oh, by the way, NSFW. But one would think that's a pretty good guess. We have that here in the United States. You know, if a bill gets voted down, the same bill can't come up, as far as I understand, can't come back up for a vote a second time without it being substantially changed and then brought back up again for reconsideration. You know, once it's voted down, that's the end of it. Now, you know, change it and bring it back up again. Something along those lines. At least within the same session of Congress, or in this case, the same session of Parliament. So Bercow comes out and quotes the 1604 rule that this is the case. And all of a sudden, everybody loses their minds. We were all expecting, I know I watched the kind of the post-Brexit pity party over at the Duran the other day, yesterday with Alex and Alex. They were both pretty much calling a Brexit post-mortem at that point, saying that Theresa May was going to bring her deal back for a third time, and that was likely going to pass because it was either that or, you know, they just say Brexit is off because, you know, we're a bunch of self-important freaking limeys. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Wow. So RB Tools is telling me right now I have to kind of stop for a second and let everybody know that RB Tools, who's Australian, just told me that the largest ISP down here just banned Zero Hedge alongside several other sites. Not surprised. They're going to go for complete and utter shutdown of the alternative press. But that was always the goal of the fake news thing. We could talk about fake news tonight if we really want to, but it's getting even worse as we go along here. The free and open internet was never free nor open. It was always meant to do exactly what what's happening right now. The push towards the app-based platforms and the mobile web, where they can control what content you could get, is what's going on. Now, like everything else, Opera comes with a VPN. By the way, it's free. It works brilliantly. My ISP blocks the Pirate Bay. Guess what? You want to get to the Pirate Bay? You tunnel in through a VPN. So The Russians have been doing it for years, so have the Chinese and everybody else. It just comes down to it. That's what you've got. And at that point, you know, you switch to a different ISP. But let's get back to Brexit, because that's really what's important. Night of the Long Knives is coming. It's all, yeah. I mean, the Reichstag fire is already here. It started with Alex Jones and Gab, and it's going to continue to go on. And there's not a lot we can do about it up until the time that they shut us all down. I mean, let's, you know, it's just the way things are going. So I know the cynics in the audience have been saying there's never going to be a Brexit. I've been mostly saying to myself for the last two and a half years, there's probably not going to be a Brexit. They're going to do everything imaginable to make sure that it didn't actually happen. But, you know, it is what it is. So Bercow coming out today and using that as precedent to say they can't bring the vote back, can't bring the deal back up for another vote. My initial reaction was good, because the surest way to get Brexit in name only is to allow Theresa May to bring the deal forward a third time or a fourth time or a fifth time until it finally passes. And, you know, that's just what I expected. So for the Remainers to then turn around and pull this shows a couple of things. And I've been saying that they've been desperate for a while now. So, but here's the best that I can figure out, having listened to a variety of different commentators who are kind of in the know. And I still don't think that that's the way it's going to go down. Okay, what I'm about to lay out for you, I still think that no deal Brexit and real Brexit got a shot in the arm today by mistake with Bercow. So here's the gig. So he pulls that and says you can't bring the deal to the table a third time. The EU, as Nigel Farage has been telling everybody, the last time he met with Michel Barnier, it's like they had a copy of it and it was like leather bound and stuff. It's done. The deal's not changing. No matter what happens here, the deal is done. The only thing that can change now is like the political declaration. And May's not going to be able to get any substantial changes to the political declaration on Thursday with 27 prime ministers and their entourage in the room, who are all mad at the Brits for yanking everybody's chain for the last 2 years. I mean, you got to remember that the EU doesn't speak with one mind here. The European Commission wants Brexit to not happen. Angela Merkel doesn't want Brexit to happen. Emmanuel Macron doesn't want Brexit to happen. That doesn't mean that Viktor Orban wants Brexit to happen. Doesn't mean that Matteo Salvini wants Brexit to happen. Doesn't mean that the Poland and Lithuania and Denmark and so many others are just like, oh, just get on with it already. You know, it's like literally shit or get off the pot. And they're tired of it. And you got to remember that one of the fallacies, the fundamental fallacies of the European Union and why it's such a mess structurally today is simply because all of these European countries don't like each other. They all profess, oh, yeah, Europe forever. And yeah, we're all Europeans. We're all of one mind. No, you're not. You're 27 distinct or 35 or 40 distinct cultures. You don't like each other very much. You fought God knows how many wars against each other. All those enmities are still there at the end of the day. And it's all going to come back. And the British people are angry at all of this. They still hate, a lot of them still hate Germans. No one wants to talk about it, but it's true. They still hate Germans after having fought 2 world wars against them in the last century. So, with Bercow blocking May bringing back a third vote for her deal sets up the next scenario, which is if there's an extension granted to the Brits, it's going to come back to Parliament, who are going to try and vote for an extension. And if they aren't, or if Mrs. May can't get an extension from the EU, which is actually quite likely, then what has to happen then is they try to go for a revocation of Article 50. And if they go for a revocation of Article 50 and that fails, then the opposition is going to try, because if May tries to block the revocation of Article 50, then the opposition, the Labor and Lib Dems and SNP and whatnot, will then get together and dissolve Parliament, and then force a caretaker government to revoke Article 50. And that's, to me, a very unlikely outcome. I'm with Nigel Farage in this one. I think they'll try it. I don't know that it'll actually pass. I don't know that all those Labor MPs that are, firmly middle class and firmly don't have any other job prospects outside of Parliament are going to do that. And I really think that that's what's coming. And at least it's part of me, it's what hope's coming. Because here's the gig. If that happens and she can't get an extension and all that comes down the pike, there will be a general election after that. Brexiteers will take office. London will be stewing and angry. The currency markets will go ballistic. Will go ballistic. They will punish the Brits like you would not believe. They're already gearing up for it. They're already starting it. Every time there's a threat of a no-deal Brexit going through, the pound drops by a couple of cents in order to try and scare everybody into voting for the deal. Same way that they scared the crap out of Congress when the first major bailout bill, the TARP bill, first went through Congress, and they brought in a Dow ticker and put it in Congress so that all the fucking assholes in Congress could go, look, the Dow is crashing, look, it's horrible, we have to vote for this. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen. They dropped the Dow 780 points in like an hour. So, Funfang says Article 50 will not be revoked. They're all desperate to see. The thing about it is it's what I've been saying for weeks now, that everybody wants to scuttle Brexit, but nobody wants to be on the hook for actually scuttling Brexit. All these Remainers don't want it to happen, but no one wants to be blamed for it. And that's why they keep trying to push it off onto somebody else. Labor tries to throw it off into the Tories. The Tories try to throw it off back onto the Labor. Everybody goes back and forth. And eventually now Bercow just finally had to say, okay, enough is enough. Let's leave it up to the EU. And that's why they pulled all those votes last week. Say, no, we really tried not to crash out of the European Union. Please don't vote me out of office. I tried to stop a no-deal Brexit, even though it's happening. Theresa May could close the session of Parliament earlier. You're absolutely right, Job of Soapbox. Do you think she's going to do it? No. If she was going to do something like that, dude, she would have fired her cabinet last week when they all voted against her. For Christ's sake, the members of her cabinet defied the whip. They should have all resigned, or she should have sacked them all. She's not senile. She's kept. She's an operative. No one wants to be put on the hook for ruining Brexit, because they all know, as much as they all go on the BBC saying, oh, I don't really think that there's that much of a public outcry over this or whatever, and they're all trying to downplay it, and they're all trying to say, oh no, I speak to plenty of my constituents and none of them want us to leave the European Union. It's all bullcrap. If that were the case, the only ones who are saying that are the ones who are just like dyed in the wool, have already gotten their freaking checks from the EU, have already gotten their deals with either investment banks or whatever. They're all set up. All them, like the Anna Soubries and the rest of them, the hell with them. They already come out and said they don't give a shit because they've already been paid off and they don't care. But the rest of them are quaking in their boots. These are not, as Nigel Farage reminds us the other day, reminded all of us the other day on his radio show. He's like, it's not like these people have ever held a proper job. It's not like these people are worth anything in the real world. They all have poli-sci degrees from public institutions and private institutions. They've spent their entire lives, because it's public-private, it's backwards in Europe, in the UK, relative to the way it is here. I do know that. So I may be getting it all wrong, but it's just insane. None of them have all spent their entire lives to become members of parliament. And if they lose this job, they're never going to get another one. What are they going to do? Go be secretaries? Street sweepers? They could all go learn to fish. Hey, they could learn to code. Ugh. Shit, that's it. That's the end of this channel. So, it's the way this is going. It's crazy how this is playing out. But it's actually kind of wholly predictable that at a certain level they've always had, well, if this happens then this, if this happens this, because they've game planned all of this, obviously. But they've had to arm twist their way here and there. I really don't think that since the deal was voted down by 230 votes, that they've all been on some kind of they've all been scrambling. I mean, they have a game planned out. They've had, plan X, plan B, C, D, E, and F. They've had them all planned out, but they're like, we never thought we'd get this far. And now they're like, what do we actually do? Because at this point, anything's possible. So, no, they're not incompetent. I know that they want the chaos. Work at racetracks shoveling shit. That's what they're good at. Stoyanovich. So fun thing. I'm glad you're here tonight, because I don't think if I've seen you before, I'm not sure if I have. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate the input. Appreciate the commentary, because it's good. But what's fascinating about this is it's very possible that they could wind up backing themselves into the exact thing they didn't want. And then what? And then what? The ERG and the Bruce Group, the ERG, these guys, if they stand tall here, and again, as one of you put up, as one of you said earlier, Bercow could have done everybody a favor because there were a lot of people who were going to cross the line, which was always the goal, which was always just, okay, at the end of the day, your choice is no Brexit or this crappy deal, which is basically no choice, right? Always funnel the choices down so that there's no choice. And then have the worthless politicians go back to the people and go, well, we tried. We tried. No, you should all be lynched. You didn't try for shit. What you tried to do was do what you wanted to do. Well, I really thought a no-deal Brexit was a bad idea. Tough shit. We told you that's what we wanted you to do, and you wouldn't do it. And now you're not going to have a job either. And that's exactly what should happen. Honestly, what should happen is the whole of Britain should all go out, get yellow vests, and march on frickin' London, is what should happen. Every goddamn one of them. They should empty the Midlands, they should empty the North, they should all come friggin' crashing right down onto the friggin' city of London and just torch frickin' Parliament. What they should do. If they do not leave on the 29th of March, it's what they should do. I got news for you. If this was the United States and this was happening here, I can tell you that's exactly what I would do. I would not be sitting in my house going, well, what a shock. Guess I'll just sit here and pick my ass and be bad about it. No, you get off your ass and you do something about it. If you're not going to, it's either leave the country and move on with your life or fight for your home. One or the other. You don't have any other choice. So, job of Soapbox. They will impose a fascist state before they reform Parliament. What makes you think it's not a fascist state as it is? No offense or anything, dude. But seriously, come on. British economy was communist in the 60s, and now it's fascist. It's not really that much different. Fear, the great political paralyzer. So, repeat the scene from V. Exactly. At the end of the day, everybody, you know, it all comes down to V for Vendetta and the truth. And so, I'm seriously, so Philip Maximus says he's seriously perplexed as to why they're not protesting yet. I got to agree with you. Oh, come on. Coming out of World War II, the socialists pretty much destroyed the British economy. I mean, if you think the British economy, you think the Brits are socialists now? Are you kidding me? I mean, did you see the stuff that they, it was awful. The British economy coming out of it was literally run by people like Jeremy Corbyn from in the post-war era onward. Okay, there you go. Jabba Soapbox finally agrees with me. I suppose you meant that you'd lose the facade that there is a democracy. Of course. I mean, you have to keep the facade up there. You have to keep the illusion. Same thing we have here. We've had the illusion of a free press. We've had the illusion of an electoral system for years. People are finally realizing that this is not what I voted for. I mean, most of the countries in Europe want to leave the EU as it's currently evolved, what it's currently evolved into. Most of the countries in the EU did not vote for what the EU has become. The Brits got there first. They were given the opportunity to vote on this. And they took them up on it. Just wait till the Italians get their day. Have you heard of Mike Brennexon? Yeah, it's a thing. Stay tuned. I'll make sure it's exciting. We already have fascism, RB Tools. You have to understand, I'm talking, when I use the word fascism, I mean it in the Mussolini version of the word, not the stupid white trash SJW version that we have here in the US and Europe, where, you know, if you don't agree with me, you're a fascist. No. Nothing outside of the state, everything within the state. Mussolini. You can have private property in name, and the government owns everything except that you have private property in name only. You have privately run businesses in name only. Okay? Almost the entire world is run. It's called state capitalism, is another version of it. Like, when you go from being communist to something better, they call it state capitalism. But when you go from capitalism to what we have today, they call it capitalism because they're all frickin' Marxists. But it's just fascism. And you gotta remember that the fascists, nobody fought harder against each other than the fascists and the communists, because there ain't nothing worse than two collectivist ideologies actually clashing. It was the discovery of the North Sea oil that rescued the British economy. You're absolutely right, Java Soapbox. And now that it's ending, the Brits have got a real problem. And the last thing they need at this point is to be tied to a failing EU with an overvalue, with all of that implies. The British police are using an incident on the other side of the planet to talk up the need to control the internet. Well, what a shock. Britain's already a freaking police state. They already have cameras on every freaking street corner. I mean, have you ever watched an episode of Sherlock? It's not like that shit's like fiction. It was the Irish, and then it was somebody else, and somebody else had to do the same thing. They had to vote twice. Stoyanovich, I'm so sorry. You mean the EU wasn't designed as a destination for German projects to suck the money out of the periphery to Germany, hence the ever expansion? Okay, I stand corrected. Maybe it was exactly what they voted, but that's not what they voted for. Of course, the Pray for Mojo says nothing means what it actually means anymore. Well, of course it doesn't. But Orwell, the first thing Orwell talked about in 1984 was corrupt the language, you control the society. I mean, come on. How double plus bad am I? You know, Newspeak sucks, right? So, but, you know, the EU is meant just to be a common economic market. And, you know, it was never meant to be a political union. It was never meant to be a fiscal union. RB Tools, it's called debt slavery, which keeps the plebes in line. Call it fascism, call it usury. Yeah, I know. I understand. I know. It's called debt slavery. Well, yeah, when you create a debt-based economy, when you create a debt-based money that the people have to pay interest on just to use. User 13 reminds us that we have anarcho-fascism. I thought the term was anarcho-tyranny. Sam Francis looks like an oracle these days. Well, you're absolutely right. That. The EU all started with an economic union. Well, with a common market, right. And the Americans should beware of the USMCA. But don't tell the Trump tards. They think he reformed NAFTA. Jabba's Soapbox. I thought Enemy of the State, the Will Smith and Gene Hackman movie, was a documentary set in the London surveillance state. Double plus, double bad. Exactly. Euphemisms are such a pain in the ass. Just say what you mean. Not when you're a politician. So the U.S. has been a fascist state for quite a long time now. I don't think what we have today is actually capitalism. You mean after 2 years of this North on 60, I hadn't convinced you of that? Yeah, of course not. It's not capitalism. We have corporatism. I mean, what you just said, corporate oligarchical fascism, you can just corporatism. That's all that is. That's what corporatism is. Okay, corporatism and fascism really aren't very much different. Right? There's a state angle to it. The state is there to prop up the corporations. The corporations are there to prop up the state. It's a symbiotic relationship. There's really not that much difference between them, though government ultimately is the vector by which that corruption and that symbiosis grows. And people, and the worst part about democratic institutions, about democracy, remember, this is one of the problems with democracy. And this is a very important point that people don't want to hear, because we're not allowed to have intellectually honest discussions, because we all have to virtue signal all the time about how great fucking democracy is, when it's really just the worst form of human. It's a terrible form of human organization. It's just better than most of the other ones. But democracy, when people own the government, right, then you have what amounts to a tragedy of the commons writ large. There's nobody really actually in charge of the government, because everybody has a say in the government, and therefore everybody's culpable and everybody's blameless. It's just like public parks, right? You know, you either have to pay the government to keep the park clean, or, you know, just say, well, everybody will keep the park clean because it's in their best interest to keep the park clean. No, if no one owns it and no one has a vested interest in making the park a destination for people to go to, then no one will clean it up. Well, it's the same thing with democracy. And worse than that, because people have what they feel is a vested interest in it, because they're a part of the government, they are the government, they still have this idea that there's a symbiotic relationship between the government and the people. And at that point, we tend to then start using our government ideologically, that it means that it's a reflection of our value system. It's a reflection of who we are as a people, or as we are culturally. It's no longer just, well, the king's over there doing his thing and we're over here doing our thing. The king owns us all, but we just pay taxes to him. But when the king goes to war, it's the king's war. When the roads when the roads wash out in the summertime, they're the king's roads. We paid the king to fucking make the roads, and if the king doesn't fix the fucking roads, then the king's in trouble. But when the government doesn't fix the freaking roads, all we can do is go, oh, well, I'll vote that commissioner out of office. But it doesn't work, because 99% of your government is the bureaucracy that keeps the elected officials delegate all the actual running of the government to. They don't actually do anything, and that's the problem. And so now you have this merging of ideology and values with the government itself, and now all of a sudden things get far worse, because now your identity is bound up with the government itself. So now an attack on the country is an attack on you. And you can't separate what your government does from who you are. Listen to the way liberals talk about their government. They're ashamed to live under a government that treats people this poorly. And that's just, I feel the same way. I'm ashamed to live under a government that, you know, bombs brown people for fun and profit, blackmails people, and, you know, starves them and blows up their electrical grids. Doesn't allow them access to, you know, to trade openly with other people. I know, so remember this. Fun thing, don't misunderstand me. The EU was always meant to become what it is today, of course, but the people were sold something completely different when they signed the Lisbon and Maastricht treaties. It was not for this. It was not ever meant to become this in their minds. It was not sold to them that way. And the ones who said it's going to become what your worst nightmare were right. And, you know, they were just ignored over time. So let's see other comments. Yeah, Jabba Soapbox. The European Union was actually always a political agenda. They simply kept it secret from the public until it was too late. Exactly. Wait until Trumpsters figure out that he's going to bring in TPP, which is what the USMCA will do, and that they have to compete with the Vietnamese, making 25 cents an hour. Actually, more like Cambodians. Vietnamese actually make over $1 an hour now, and their sovereignty is at the whim of corporations. True capitalism as true communism is impossible with humans. Both are impossible dreams. Capitalism happens. What we're doing right now is capitalism. Capitalism is simply the voluntary exchange of goods and services, and the ends of that wind up being things along the lines of jointly owned companies that issue stock and all the other things, and then we trade all that stuff. All these things happen. All the stuff that you see today is all capitalism. The problem is, it's capitalism within this ridiculous regulatory framework that sucks all the profit out of it up for the bureaucratic and elite classes who have access to the money first, while everybody else gets screwed. Deplorable. On a totally different topic, asks me, do you think General Electric will get their act together? Why should they? They'll always get bailed out by the government. They always have, they always will. Like US Steel, like Boeing, like so many other companies. I haven't been following GE at all, but they're very politically connected. They're very important from a government contractor perspective, and I don't know. We'll see. But the only way they're ever going to get their act together is if the government stops bailing them out. RB Tools telling Stoyanovich, I know mechanics will tell you that German cars are prone to electrical problems. Oh yeah, every German car I've ever owned has gremlins. Their electrical system is just shit. Every Volkswagen, I've owned a half dozen Volkswagens in my life, or my family, or anything, and they're all the same. After about 5 years, the electrical systems just start to degrade. They're the greatest cars in the world until, you know, the electrical system just kind of shorts out on I-75 and the whole car shuts down and then randomly starts back up again. I had a Beetle that did this. It was crazy. El Vaccaro says, I have a feeling that our elected officials don't even read the legislation they pass, much less write it themselves. You have a feeling? You mean you don't think that that's actually, you didn't know that that was actually true? It's terrible. I mean, German cars are great for the first 5 years you own them. Just sell them after that. Yeah, GE has been defined as a vital military builder. They're basically a government entity now. They always have been. I have to stay on top of the comments tonight because they are on, I have it on the Restream chat. Actually, and here's another thing tonight. The Periscope chat's not here again, and I don't know why. So it was here for a night and now it's gone, probably because I have to like log into my Periscope account every 15 minutes. Otherwise they'll block. Otherwise, well, there was some strange activity on your account and you're going to have to like log in. I'm like, I don't log into my Periscope account. G has the same problem as all bailed out companies do. They develop really bad habits after the crisis and never, ever, ever have any incentive to change. The point, Mark Bogosian, you're absolutely correct. The problem with bailing companies out is that they never get the incentive to change. They are never taught the discipline of the market. The market teaches discipline. Okay? That's what it does. So, and there's no way around that. When you suck, you should be fired. Period. Okay? I live in a world today, every dollar that I make today is based purely on my wits. Right? If I can't convince you guys to sign up for my Patreon or get somebody to pay me to write an article for them, I'm fucked. It's that simple. Okay? And I wouldn't have it any other way. Because, you know, when I don't get those signals from the market, I sit on my ass and don't do anything and just collect the paycheck. Because I'm like everybody else in this world. When life's easy, you don't have to work that hard. I mean, unless you have some like driving need to prove to yourself, to prove to the world that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't. So, you know, come on. If I didn't have a need to get up in the morning and write something hopefully brilliant, my kid doesn't eat. Capitalism is not reliant on regulation. It's not. Fun fact. That's the lie. That third way. That all these third way. It's like third way third way economics is hard. The mixed economy is bullshit. Okay, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I'm an anarcho-capitalist and a hardcore libertarian. I'm an Austrian economist, and you know, and an individualist philosophically. And I urge you, if you have not read Mises and Rothbard, I urge you to read Murray Rothbard's The Ethics of Liberty. You know, pretty much anything by Rothbard and anything by Mises to understand the Austrian business cycle. What Austrian economics is, where it comes from, and why free market capitalism and the respect of individuals to live their lives free of coercion is ultimately the best form of human organization, which is to say none. That organization happens as a consequence of people acting in their own best interest, and eventually they come together to form temporary alliances and do the things they do and form organizations that tend to live beyond them but are always in flux and always in a state of morphing and changing relative to what human beings need, because ultimately the pricing system is the information system of our lives that lets us know, that gives us all the signals that we need in order to make economic actions that make sense to us. The minute you start mucking with the pricing system, you muck with the information. Garbage in equals garbage out, and over the course of time, we get the kind of cocked up situation we have today. So every time the government, for example, creates some stupid fucking law that says, well, you have to do this as opposed to that, you're only allowed to drive 55 miles an hour on our roads or whatever, or just say, look, we're the only ones who are allowed to build these types of roads. This is a massive, massive market intrusion into into the way people work. Eminent domain, grab property from people, build a road, export crime. It creates hundreds of secondary of effects that cannot be quantified in any way, but are everywhere, and pervert the pricing signals of transportation, of the cost of building a road along those lines, of maintaining that road, of the societal breakdown, of all of it, of the things that happen when you build a road, for fuck's sake, no less all the other things you do. And I just fundamentally believe that when we want something done, it should be up to us to do it, and we don't need a government to do it for us, and we should not give it to somebody who's going to point a gun and say we're going to do this, as opposed to, hey, shouldn't we get together and do this? And so, all right, let's see. I will always put more meat on that, on those bones as we go along, but I'm going to move on to another point. You guys are all talking about cars. That's great. Let's see. Michael says to me, hey, Tom, Australia is ramping up the censorship. Yeah, RB Tools was selling earlier that Telstra and Vodafone, most of the market, have blocked Zero Hedge and a host of other unsafe sites. El Vaquero says, quote, when you suck, you should be fired. So about that Federal Reserve and the too big to fail banks? Exactly. It's the problem with government. The problem that the Brits are having right now is they can't fire Parliament right now. They're not allowed. And they suck. They suck and should be fired, but can't because we're between elections. And now, and the reason they suck is because 500 of them believe that they should never be allowed to be fired for sucking. We're going to hand over control of the country to a bunch of unelected fucking drunk bureaucrats who can't be fired. Oh, cool. I'm good to know, fun thing, that you and I are on the same page. Just wanted to make sure. I complete anarcho-capitalist, dude. I'm just like, it's it. Philip Maxim says, I've been loving the audiobooks on Mises.org. Yes, all of everything is on Mises.org. As free as audiobooks. They're great. I've listened to so many books read by Jeff Regenbach. It's unbelievable. I used to get them in the car when I was working away from home and traveling and commuting 3.5 hours each week back and forth to my wife and daughter up here. I used to just download a whole bunch of crap onto my phone and put in one earbud and listen to them all the way home. It's insane. Economic freedom is absolutely the road to happiness. It's not just economic freedom, and it's also intellectual freedom as well. You have to be free up here in order to then translate that into how you're going to try and live your life as free as possible out there. The best you can do living in this society that we live today is to try and minimize your interaction with the coercive aspects of our society. It's the best you can do. And if you can do that as much as possible, then you will eventually find out that you're as happy as you're going to be. I mean, I sit out here and I do this for a couple of hours every week, and I'm sure I show you my angry face more often than not because I'm railing against the inchoate stupidity of the world. But to be honest with you, I love what I do. I love my life. My wife is one of the the three greatest people on the planet, next to my daughter and probably my cat, who you all have met before. I live in a house I built myself. I have no neighbors, and yet I have internet access. For a techno hippie like me, this thing is fucking awesome. I have nothing to complain about. Except my government, which everybody should complain about all the fucking time. Because every man, in the immortal words of H.L. Mencken, every decent man should be ashamed of the government that he lives under. Stoyanovich reminds us that they believe they announced the merger of the two main German banks yesterday. You could knock me over with a feather with that news. That's how bad it is that they had to do that. Yeah, they're going to go after Zero Hedge. They tried on Facebook to go after Zero Hedge, and the outcry was so big, so high. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to ever visit you guys. I've gotten to that point. I'm like, if you want to know anything, you're going to have to use a VPN. And I recommended Opera earlier. I've been using Opera for probably 3 years now. I love it. Yes, it is. User 13 reminded me earlier that it is a bit of a resource hog if you keep open a lot of tabs. I usually have at any one point between 8 and 10 tabs, and every once in a while you just have to shut it down and reboot it. But it is worth doing for having the free VPN that you can use on a regular basis. When you need it, you just click it on, and when you don't need it, you don't need the hassle. Like for me, I don't have great bandwidth, as you guys know, so I only really use the VPN when I absolutely need to. For the most part, I just don't. So, why do libertarians want the government to back off on everything except immigration? I would think they want free movement of everything. Juan Isaac brings up an interesting point. The biggest split within the libertarian community, small L libertarian community, not big L libertarian party, is over open borders. And the doctrinaire libertarian perspective is for open borders. But in a world with governments and nation states and welfare states and warfare states, I am in the minority amongst doctrinaire libertarians, which will tell you that open borders is a sham and is not compatible with a welfare state and warfare state. So when we devolve the state back to its minimalist functions, then the political border itself becomes a non-issue. If we have sound money and no welfare state and no warfare state, and no drug war, and no foreign policy creating and displacing people, then the immigration question kind of obviates itself. And then the default position would be that the border's not a big deal, because there's no reason to actually want to protect versus one another, because you have to realize that at that point, if you have a society that does not need to have those things or does not desire those things, then that's going to bleed across the political border. I was writing an article this afternoon for Strategic Culture about Crimea. And on the news that today's the 5th anniversary of Crimea reunifying with Russia. And Putin was there to inaugurate the two big power plants that they've built in Simferopol and Sevastopol. They're going to bring like almost a gigawatts worth of power to the peninsula, and enough power actually for them to export a small amount. Well, with reliable electricity comes the potential for a first world economy. And with a first world economy, there is the potential for the benefits of that first world economy to leak across political borders. And you hope that the stability and the predictability and the stability and the prosperity that comes with that kind of economic growth would leak across the border between Crimea and southern Ukraine, and help to in the long run, help to end the conflict. The reason we have such violence on the Mexico border is because of the drug war and so many other things. And so, no, I'm not for open borders at this moment in time, but my goal is not to close the border. My goal is to reform government to the point where it's not exacerbating the problem at the border. The border is the violence and the problem at the border are symptoms of deeper and much more important problems that need to be solved. Unfortunately, these are problems that the governing class don't want to solve. They like the chaos. They like the fucking wars. They like the displaced people. They like the illicit drug trade. They like all of that. Because those are hobgoblins that keep people scared, and then we can move the conversation, and we can move a certain percentage of the populace wherever we need to. I say it all the time in geopolitical terms. These open wounds, these places, these hotspots are meant to stay as open wounds forever, so that they can be sprung up into a crisis whenever they need to, in order to advance something that they want to advance. Does that help, Juan Isaac? I certainly hope that helps. Michael says, you are educating so many people, Tom. Seriously, you know how to communicate the essentials on a polymathic array of topics. Be careful, mate. Thank you. I will be honest with you. It's been something that I have worked on like most of my life. And it's been actually something that I've worked assiduously towards to get to this state and be in this moment, in this place, at this time. And if I was really successful at it, there'd be a zero. There'd be another order of magnitude of people subscribed to this channel. I'm not there yet. Hey, Tom, my friend lives in Tavers, Florida, lived in America 12 years. He's a real Bernieite. I asked him, did he ever hear of Tom Luongo? He says, that guy is delusional. Oh, I love it. That's great. Fantastic. Tell him Bernie's an old fucking moldy commie from the 70s who hasn't updated his worldview since then. And he and Jeremy Corbyn should just go somewhere together and start a fucking commune and get it out of our, and both of them just get out of our faces. All right, they want to kettle us into nice and approved news sources from RB Tools. Tyranny will come of it, and we'll have a corporate flavor, of course. Doesn't the pursuit of profit above all things produce these things, though, Tom? No, not at all. Profit is I love the phrase of that. And that's a very Marxist phrase, the pursuit of profit. Like, and we only pursue profit as opposed to everything else. Profit comes in all forms. Profit comes in the form of satisfaction, be it emotional satisfaction, material satisfaction, all of those things. You're not just successful if you have a lot of money. Okay. There are sociopaths in this world and there are psychopaths. They will measure themselves by how much they can steal from other people and how much misery they can bring on other people. The question you should ask yourself is, when someone like that who's not looking for profit, they're looking for rent. And rent is different. Rent is unearned wealth. Rent is the wealth you stole through the connivance of manipulating privilege as granted by government. Okay? That's fundamentally different. None of us are actually... Sorry, I'm just reading some other comment from user 13. Yes, I'm weak. I only have 8 to 10 friggin' things open. Love, I'm sorry. I can't be a professional like you have 18. I have 3 different computers to keep 20 different tabs open. I'm not stupid. I spread the wealth. Okay, back to the point. That profit, it's in and of itself, is not evil. Actually, as Ayn Rand was right to say, profit is actually what we do in order to live. Our whole life is about pursuing profit. We profitably are sitting here right now, profitably turning food and oxygen into energy to live. It's profit. Profit. It's what we're doing. We pursue things that order the universe up for us in such a way as to minimize the risk of living till tomorrow. We satisfy, we act now in the service of in servicing our needs in the future. But like everything else, there's no unlimited pursuit of profit. Because remember, I say this all the time, what's the one law of economics that matters? The law of diminishing marginal utility. Again, read all the Mises guys. They go over this all the time. What is the law of diminishing marginal utility? Well, it's very simple. It's the law that says that the acquisition of the next unit of a thing is worth less to you than the previous unit. By definition. It could be a lot, it could be a little. It doesn't say anything about the amount that thing is worth less to you, but it is worth less to you. If you are dying of thirst, that first sip of water saves your life. Well, stabilizes your life. The second sip of water, still pretty important. The third sip of water, still pretty important. The 30th sip of water, not as important as the first. Somebody walks in with a 5-gallon bucket at that point. You're like, dude, I don't need that much water. It's the same thing with money. There comes a point where you don't need any more. Guys like Jeff Bezos don't have billions of dollars that they like roll around and take baths in every day. They've got stock that they can't sell. We made them that rich by using Amazon or Apple or whatever. We made them rich. They provided a service that they could provide to us, and we thought was cheaper to pay them. We got more value out of the product they and service they provided for us than it cost them. We get more value out of what it cost them. It's just comparative advantage. The law of diminishing marginal utility also encompasses the law of supply and demand, comparative advantage, opportunity cost, all the other things that we talk about in basic economics. But everything comes down to the law of diminishing marginal utility. There comes a point where getting another dollar doesn't matter. That first dollar, it's important. The first couple $100 pays your rent. The first couple $100 pays your food. The second couple $100 pays your rent. The third couple $100, after that, electricity, food, and internet. Gas in your car. Wear and tear on your car. Depreciation on your car. All that stuff. And then once you get above that, now you're into profit. All that other stuff is just the basics in order for you to live from month to month. Well, by definition, capitalism has morality. Because at some point, everybody says, I don't need more than this. I want something else, something else other than money will satisfy me. The communists try to turn, like Bernie, they try and turn all profit into nothing but a soulless drive for money. That's bullshit. And they take out all of the personal satisfaction of living your life in such a way that makes you, why do you acquire money? Money for its own sake doesn't do anything for you. Money is the intermediate between, is the medium of exchange. It's the intermediate between the state you're in to the state you want to be in, to turn what is into what will be. That's it. And so using the word profit like a pejorative does violence to the very word itself, because it takes out it strips away from it all of these meanings and all of these levels of meaning that are inherent. What are you doing? Why are you listening to my voice right now? Why are you spending your short time on this fucking planet listening to some ranting fucking asshole on the internet? Ask yourself that question. Why? Why are you doing it? Why are you doing this as opposed to anything else you could be doing right now? Why am I doing it right now? Why am I doing it? Because I'm in pursuit of money? I'm hoping that y'all will just sign up for my Patreon, those of you who aren't currently subscribers? No. There are plenty of ways to make money in this world. I don't need to do it this way. I do it because I feel that this is the best crossover, the best intersection between that which I want to do with my life and that which will be profitable enough to afford me the life I want to live. And I have to make the trade-off between making fuck tons of money, which I could go out there and do, because it's a matter of just going out and doing it. That's something I may not like or even be any good at. Well, if I'm not any good at it, I probably won't make money at it. But I'm sure there's plenty of things out there that I can do better than this and make fuck tons of money at. Maybe. But you ask yourself the question, why are you here? Why are you listening to me? Because it's profitable for you to do so. Because you're hoping to come here and learn something. The other night, I was sitting on Friday night, I sat there after the 55-minute mark, we started talking about Frank Zappa. There were 70 people in the stream. I started talking about Frank Zappa, and we were at 30 by the time we were done. Why? 40 people decided that listening to me talk about Frank Zappa wasn't profitable for them. The market is very clear. Every time I do a video that's not on politics, nobody watches it. Because no one gives a shit what my opinions on a board game are, or, on music or anything. No one gives a crap about that. That's not what I've been told by the marketplace is something that's interesting. All value is subjective. There is no such thing as inherent value. Mark Bogosian is completely right. All value is subjective. There is no such thing as as inherent value. There is inherited value. as in, like the argument for commodity-based money. You're here to educate me, Tom. Awesome. Thank you, Pray for Mojo. Amazon is the Walmart of the internet. I just canceled my Prime subscription. What a ripoff. Not for me, it's not. It may be for you, Juan Isaac, but it's not for me. I live rurally. I pay $129 a year for a crap ton of music to listen to on my phone, video services, and original television, and shipping, and guaranteed delivery of all sorts of crap. I prepay every year for my shipping. And my UPS guy and I are on a first name basis because he's probably out to my house 4 times a week, and I live in the middle of fucking nowhere. Do you know how much money it would cost me to drive into fucking Walmart or Gainesville on a regular basis in order to get the things that I need? Forget the fact that there's things that I need that I can only get from Amazon. It's an unbelievable service for me. I'm not saying it's an unbelievable service for everybody, but it's an unbelievable service for me. I love Amazon. I don't like the fact that Bezos is in bed with the CIA and yada, 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 but at the end of the day, Amazon works for me. I disagree, RB Tools. Your government sees you as a unit in a vast equation. They see you as nothing more than a tax cow to milk. Your businesses do the same. Absolutely not. Some businesses do. Most of the businesses you're talking about are businesses that don't give a shit, that don't care whether their business is going to survive tomorrow or not because they have government contracts. Don't give a fuck about you. But at the end of the day, if the companies, all they care about is what you think. Companies go out of business every day for breaching the public trust on a regular basis. For one thing and one thing only. Trust is impossible to get and easy to break and impossible to regain. Stoyanovich reminds us that socialists / communists don't care about the poor, nor do they envy the poor. They envy the rich because they want to be rich. And envy is different than jealousy. It's a great point that the great Gary North used to make all the time. Envy is the thing that you should be scared of, because envy is the desire to tear down what somebody else has. Jealousy is just that aspiration to want to have what the other guy has. But envy is the difference between jealousy and envy is that envy crosses the line over to destroying that which somebody else has. There's that great scene in Fight Club where he beats the crap out of Angel in the fight. And Tyler Durden says, "What the fuck happened to you? What the fuck's up with you?" "I just felt like destroying something beautiful." That's envy. That's his darkest moment in the entire movie. Okay. Well, I love the fact that you're here. Donna from NC says, I always enjoy talking about music. And I'm here to learn. Me too. All right. Do values have value? Yes. DTF. Of course they do. Values are what allow us to have the ability to make decisions about what it is that we value and what we don't value. Just to be clear, I'm not a communist. As for socialism, aspects of it are inevitable. We are social creatures. No one ever said that an individual society does not build communities. I'm here to tell you, that's part of my gig, is to tell you that we libertarians believe in community so much that we don't believe you can build one by pointing guns at each other. You don't build a stable society by pointing a gun at each other and say, give me what's in your pocket. Because that's what socialism does. It doesn't matter if it's communism, social, all forms of collectivism eventually have a gun. What we're saying is you build stable societies. You build the constructive portions of society and of culture and all those things are an outgrowth of respecting a person's wishes and the person's other value system so much that you're unwilling to breach that value system in such a way as to take their stuff from them, but find common ground through negotiation. That's why I'm here. I may be a lunatic, but that's why I'm here. The Anti-Federalists were anarchists. They wanted no king or central state. That's why Henry refused to attend the Constitutional Convention. Yeah. And they were right. Pray for Mojo says, yeah, it's great. I have to sit up until 1 to 2 a.m. Holy shit, dude. Really? For this show. So it needs to be good. I'll take that in mind, to keep that in consideration. I'll take that under consideration to make sure that I don't waft off into Zappaland until, you know, after the 55-minute mark. Yeah, so user 13 says the same for, she agrees with me about Amazon. It's just so convenient. And that's why you effectively, that's what your shipping deal is you just pay for, your Prime deal is you're just prepaying for the shipping every year. Yep. Yeah, I don't like Jeff Bezos either with, you know, where he is at this point. But Prime suits me. I hate, Philip Maximus, I hate the fact that I love Amazon, but I do. Even though they've been banning about 10 books a month for years, slowly precious books are disappearing. Yeah, and there's you just have to look for other ways to get those books. And so you can't buy those books on Amazon? Fine. Amazon has its pros and cons. The long term, it's very bad for the little guy. Or easily cross-shopped. Or you can always look at the local retail shops of easily cross-shopped mass-produced items were never a good business model in the first place. And that capital can be freed up and that space can be freed up and be used for different, and be reorganized into different things. You know, it's just, I hate to say it to you, but that's just the way it is. When was the last time the West was largely a free market? Pre-Federal Reserve. Are we real or just a simulation? It's a good question. Are you now or have you ever been? Michael says, yes, envy is destructive and jealousy is constructive. It's a very important distinction. Thank you for backing me up on that one. That's really important. It matters that there was a creator if it's a simulation. There is proof we are not in a simulation. Just one particle will require a universe of computers. Okay, so RB Tool says, if the gun exists, someone will wield it, Tom. I can't just see the libertarian idea of being anything other than the dream. I am a libertarian at heart, but not in mind. Here's the gig. That's all I'm asking you to be. I'm not asking you to add, I'm not asking you to say, we need to have Ancapistan now. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for you to remember that the non-aggression principle and the ideal is what we should use as a guidepost for our political, social decisions, and then work in that direction. We'll never reach that direction. We'll never reach there. I agree with you. You can only reach it through over time across generations by reinforcing good behavior as opposed to giving in to the ring of power, grabbing the gun, and saying, do what I want. It's what you got to do. It's here and here. And then practice as best as you can. I'm not asking for perfection. That's asinine. It's a guidepost. It's a path. It's a means to an end. It's not the end of it in and of itself. It's the means by which you separate specification versus implementation. How you specify what the problem is, and then figure out and craft an implementation using the non-aggression principle and libertarian and individualist philosophy in order to craft solutions is usually the best, almost always the best option. Almost always. If not always. But I'll just say almost always because I like to not believe in absolutes. The simulation and speculation seems like searching for God in a non-religious context. It seems like a yearning and a rejection of God at the same time. I don't find it compelling, this user 13. I'm not a, yeah, I it's that whole Philip K. Dick thing, right? It's the whole idea of, you know, can you build a universe that doesn't fall apart within 2 days? You know, are we all just living in a construct of somebody else's imagination? It's possible, but it's irrelevant because it doesn't bear any resemblance. We don't have any control over it, so therefore, how can you care about it? You know, I mean, Glenn Horowitz. If I had time, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and egg Aaron Burr on to get rid of that creep which derailed a brand new America by afflicting it with the central state, Alexander Hamilton. So yeah, I'd fight, you know, if you could fight one person, you'd fight Alexander Hamilton. I'd fight Milton Friedman. An unexamined life is not worth living. Bingo. RB Tools. I'm real. I know that because I have to pay my land taxes in a few weeks. Bingo. I will leave with this because we are at 1 hour and 11 minutes and it's time for me to go. Since you're all thinking about it. What's the great quote by Philip K. Dick? Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. All right, this has been the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. You guys have a great night. We will do this again on Friday at 8:30. And hopefully it'll be fun. I don't know. Viva la Brexit. Talk soon. Keep your sick on.